Welcome everyone, good evening. My name's Yvonne Hilsz and I'm your facilitator and the PNC president of New South Wales Federation PNC. We'll just give it a couple of minutes as you all jump in. So thank you so much. Alrighty, we'll just give it a minute or two. This has been a very popular webinar and I appreciate that we are hitting the sweet spot for many of us, balancing kids, dinner, homework, bath time. I am too juggling that as well. So I'll just give it a couple of moments before I begin, just to allow us all to come through. Alrighty. Hopefully you can all hear. We have done a tech check, but very much looking forward to this session tonight. The webinar will be 1 hour, so we will finish at 8 p.m. We do have time at the end of the presentation for Q&A that is worked into the 60 minutes. And thank you to all of those who have pre-submitted some questions. That has been very useful. So yes, so it's 60 minutes. I'll give it one more minute. I know I like to start on time, but this has been, I know it's just on time. I appreciate how many of us are most probably balancing everything that goes in between, everything that happens at 7 o'clock at night. So one more minute and then I'll start with our official opening. So in the meantime, grab yourself a cup of tea, coffee or water or any other refreshment. We've got an incredible session tonight. This has been a very popular one, obviously around opportunity classes. I'll give it 30 more seconds and then I'm going to begin. Yes, there will be a recording for those who can't make it tonight and also for everyone who has registered. Very likely this will also be on the PNC Federation website. All right, thank you very much. I will officially open up this evening. So my name's Yvonne Hilsz and I'm the president of the PNC Federation board and very excited for this webinar tonight. It is a very important topic and a very popular one, as we have found out as well. So first of all, in the spirit of reconciliation, the PNC Federation acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. And we pay our respect to their elders past, present and extend to all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people here today. And I'm speaking from the Aurora land and the Wongal people. The summary of what we are going to do tonight. So as I've mentioned, it is an hour long. There will be time for Q&A and thank you for those who have sent through their questions ahead as well. It's been very useful. We're here tonight to discuss the big topic that many parents of Year 4 students, and some of you might be a bit earlier than Year 4, are thinking about at the moment, and it's very much around the timing of the applications for the opportunity classes that are opening tomorrow, hot off the press. We are very fortunate to have a range of expert speakers here tonight to really discuss in a lot of detail all aspects of applying for opportunity classes. And I'd very much like to welcome the team from the Selective Education Unit at the Department of Education this evening. We have Magda Pollak, who is the leader of Selective Education, Garth Bolwell, who's the manager of Opportunity Class Placement, Morag Swankie, who's the Opportunity Class Placement Advisor, and Skye, Senior Disability Placement Officer. We will have a presentation that you can see holding on the screen from our speakers tonight, and then we will turn to Q&A. And we'll answer as many questions as we can. There, just as a heads up, there is a team of people behind the scene who will also be collaborating all of those questions. And there will be some themes that I'll be presented with that we can help answer. And certainly Magda has a series of questions that we know are very popular around this topic. Just a bit of housekeeping before I hand over to Magda. Please add your questions in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen throughout the session. Like I said, there's a team of people behind the scenes. The team from PNC Federation and New South Wales Department of Education are here tonight. They will be viewing and managing your questions. The questions won't be visible to other attendees as well. We are recording tonight's webinar and we'll be sharing the recording with everyone who registered in the next few days. If you would like to activate the live transcript for this webinar, please go to the icon at the bottom of your screen and click on Enable auto-transcription. All right, without further ado, I will be handing over to Magda Pollak, who will begin tonight's presentation. But again, thank you so much for showing up, and I'll be back for Q&A towards the end of this presentation. Thank you, Magda.
Thank you, Yvonne, and thank you everyone for coming and listening. It's always amazing to me how many people are interested in this topic, and it's pretty wonderful. I've got a very competent team. We've been doing it for a long time. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge country. We recognise the ongoing custodians of the lands and waterways where we work, where we live, and where you are joining us from today. We pay respects to elders past and present as ongoing teachers of knowledge, songlines and stories. We extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today. We strive to ensure all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander learners in New South Wales achieve their potential through education. Okay, so this is briefly what we'll be talking about. We'll cover what are opportunity classes. We'll cover the actual stages of the placement program. We'll in depth talk to you about submitting your application, because that's an online process and it's quite complicated. We'll talk about reasonable adjustments for disability. We'll take you through the kinds of testing that is done. We'll briefly talk about malpractice. And if your child can't sit the test, or there's a problem during the test, we have an illness and misadventure process. We'll briefly touch on the equity placement model. We'll tell you about how you'll get the notice of outcome. If you need to, we will show you how to appeal. We'll give you contact information. And for the last few slides, we've taken some pre-submitted questions which seem to be a bit of a theme from many of you, and we've answered those. So let's kick on. What are opportunity classes? It's a question that a lot of parents ask. Opportunity classes are a way of grouping children together who are like-minded, who have like abilities. And all the research we know and have discovered is that children like that, if they're grouped together, their learning is enhanced. They learn better when they have when they're in a group with other students who have the same interests and the same sorts of abilities. And so those classes specialise with evidence-based teaching and learning methods. So the teachers know how to teach these sorts of children. There's a lot of open-ended questioning. There's a lot of faster pace learning. One of the things that was discovered quite recently, in fact, was that these really gifted students very often need to receive the information or the skills at a much faster level than other students. So that was quite a surprise to the researchers. They go in greater depth and they go in greater extension, complexity. So supporting them like that, they develop really good, rigorous, independent learning behaviours. That's why we do it. Next slide. So what are these kinds of kids? What does the term high potential and gifted describe? If you're looking at your child and you've never come across other children at the same level, you don't know what the comparison is. You don't know what you're looking for. So high potential students are those whose potential exceeds that of students of the same age. So you hear about students who start, or children who start walking at an early age or reading at an early age, and they pass their milestones much quicker than other children. This is kind of the same thing. Gifted students, high potential students, are those who are a little bit better than, not better, but higher ability than students of the same age. But you get degrees of that. The gifted students are those whose potential significantly exceeds that of students of the same age. So you can start to see these are kids who genuinely look as though they're really progressing a lot faster, But we still have a third category, and those are highly gifted students. Those are the little geniuses that sit down at the piano at age 3 and become Chopin or Tchaikovsky. So highly gifted students, we find, require specific and significant curriculum adjustments. They need stuff a lot faster. They don't need to lockstep. They need to be able to leap across things that they already get. We do have a video on that on our website. What do we mean by high potential and gifted students? So that's something you need to look for on our website. Next slide, thanks, Morag. If you're looking at your own little kiddie at home, these are some of the things, not all of them, and there are other things as well, but these are just some of the things you might find that identify your child as having high potential or being gifted. They'll enjoy learning, and it may not be standard academic stuff. It may be learning about dinosaurs or goldfish or sculpture. They have a good sense of humour, very different sometimes, very dry sometimes, very sarcastic, but almost always some sense of humour. They have intense curiosity. They'll really read up on everything to do with what they're interested in. They display good memory. They ask complex questions. They enjoy learning new and often complex ideas, and they do it much faster. They require fewer repetitions. They're very often creative. This is a very interesting thing. Bright kids are very often creative, but creative kids are not always bright. They become intensely focused in their area of interest or passion. So sometimes these things are hidden because children have been brought up under disadvantage or disability. So we're not just looking for that in our testing and our observation, but those are some of the things parents can use to figure out whether their child's in this ballpark. Next slide, thanks, Morag. So we now have suddenly, in fact, 86 primary schools with opportunity classes in New South Wales, 54 of them in metropolitan Sydney, 31 in rural and regional locations, and we have a fabulous program at Aurora College where students sit in their normal rural and remote classrooms, but for their STEM subjects, their science, their technology, and so on, they join other highly gifted students and they do those subjects together in little pods with a teacher online. And it's been found to be really fabulous. Classes can have 15, so most schools are composite classes, so 15 year 5, 15 year 6 in the same class. But they can also have a whole year 5 class and a whole year 6 class as well. So some of them, a few of them have 2 year 5 and year 6 classes, not many anymore. Schools with 15 students, I've explained that. The following 10 primary schools are going to start up next year. So you can choose them now when you start to apply, but they will only start up with year 5 next year. And so they will be only 15 students. There won't be a year 6 until the following year. And you can read those on the screen. Now, you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, we have on our website a map that is quite interactive. You can go onto the map. The first map there shows the primary schools with opportunity classes. You have 2 layers of them, so you can see what were the original ones, and you can see the new ones as a separate layer if you want to look. And the one underneath is the host schools for Aurora College. So they have to be rural and remote schools. So you'll see if you can search by school name or suburb or anything when you go to those maps. So you'll be able to find the specific school you're interested in. Thanks, Morag. Next slide. A little bit about Aurora, a virtual opportunity class, and it has 100 places, so it's quite a large class, but of course it's not taught as one group of 100. It's taught in about 10 groups of 10. So it works quite well, and they actually attend a camp once or twice a year, I think, to make sure they get to know each other and to get to know their teachers personally. So I've explained that they do mathematics, science and technology, and they have to be enrolled in a local government host school to be part of the Aurora program. That doesn't mean that if your child is in a non-government school at the moment, you can't apply, but when you apply, you'll be asked to specify a government school that you will be prepared to enroll your child in if your child is successful. Thanks, Morag. Now, I wanted to show that this is only one way that the department caters for these students. It's actually not a lot of vacancies, as you can see. I've put this little chart in to show you just how small a percentage of the whole possible group of Year 4 students it is. It's the first bar is the Year 4 total enrolled. Next bar shows you the ones enrolled in public schools, then the ones in non-government schools. Then you can see how many applicants we get. Approximately 15,000 students applied in 2023. And of course, there are only 1,840 places available. So it's highly, highly competitive, but I tell you later on how to deal with it if your child isn't successful, because there are, the chances are not high with those numbers. So it's absolutely no reflection on your child's ability if they just don't get in. In some schools, if they miss one question, that kind of knocks them out of that ballpark because it's such a competitive area. Next slide. Okay, so I'll hand over, I think, to Garth rather than Morag, but Morag's name's still on there. Go ahead, Garth. Oh, it is Morag?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Morag.
Yeah, sorry.
Over to you.
Yeah, it is me. So the next part is about the placement stages. And we've got all the key dates. They're listed on here, but you can access them on the website, and they're also in an information booklet, which I'll show you in a moment. It's really important that you're aware of the dates and the deadlines, particularly the application window, because we have to be very strict about those deadlines. And as I said, there is a great printout that you can keep, put it on your fridge, put it somewhere prominent, that has all the dates listed so that you can make sure that you're aware of them. The information for applicants, this is a booklet that is on the website, and most of the schools, you will have received this in the emails that have been sent through from schools already. It's really important that you read the information's booklet before making your application. Pretty much everything you will need to know will be in there. It covers absolutely everything. It explains the process, and it also explains any documentation that you might need to upload for when you submit your application. And I'm now handing over to Garth.
So now it is really me. Hi, everybody. I'll be covering quite a few aspects of the placement program tonight, from submitting an application to malpractice procedures, illness and misadventure procedures. And I'll also provide a quick overview of the equity placement model, and then we'll talk about outcomes. It's a lot of information, we know, that we are giving you in this very condensed time period. So I would just reiterate what Morag has said about the quality of the resources that we have available to support you, both the website and that booklet, the information for applicants. It will have all of the details of the things that we are also showing you tonight, and we can also share the content in tonight's presentation, but there's no expectation that you need to remember everything that we're sharing with you tonight. We do have other places where you can get that information. School choices is an area that we often receive a lot of questions about, and it's really important to understand because it can impact your outcome. One important thing to understand is that OC schools are not zoned. So unlike other public schools, you can apply for any OC school that you like. You can select up to 2 school choices, and the order in which you list your choices, it matters. It's really important. So you should always put your preferred school as your first choice. This is because students can only be offered a place at one school at a time. And if students qualify for both of their choices, they will only get their first choice offer, and they cannot change this or try to swap it for an offer at their second choice school. So it's really important when you're organising your school choices that you put your preferred school as your first choice. You'll notice that school choices can be changed inside the application dashboard until the 11th of August. The OC test is on the 1st of August. So you can see that you do have some time after the students have done the test if you want to log in and change the school choices on your application. Students who don't receive an offer of placement may go on to a reserve list for one or both of their school choices. And when a student declines an offer of placement, we then go to the reserve list and start making offers to the next student that's qualified. Reserve lists are organised in rank order, and students can only go on to reserve lists for schools that they've listed. So those school choices are really important. You can't go back and change your school choices after the 11th of August, regardless of how the student may have performed in the test. You can accept an offer for your second choice school and stay on the reserve list for your first choice until the 23rd of November 2025. And after that date, we take any students that are at a second choice school off the reserve list for the first, so that we can fill the classes before the school year begins. We would send alerts and reminders about those kinds of things through the dashboard, which you'll become familiar with in a moment. Next slide, please. So this is where you go to apply. We will provide the link to you later on today as well. As you know, applications open tomorrow. There'll be a big red button on that page there that says, I think it says apply now. Next slide, please. And this is what the registration and application dashboard looks like. So you can see there's 2 buttons down the bottom there. One is to register and one is to log in. If you've never used the application dashboard before, you need to create an account first. So you would use the register option, and then after you have got an account, you would use the login button to then log back in. If you have other children that have applied for selective education placement in the past, you probably already have an account. You don't need to create a new one. You log in with those credentials. Next slide, please. So when you have registered and then log in, you'll be prompted to start a new application, and basically you follow the steps as defined on the application screen. Some fields are mandatory. They're labelled with a red asterisk. There are elements of the application that you are able to leave empty and come back in at a later time and add more information to, but those mandatory fields have to be filled out in order for you to submit the application. Next slide. So after you've created and registered your account, we would ask you to go to that dashboard whenever you want to communicate with us, make any changes to your application, or to check and receive any communication that we have sent to you. The dashboard is our primary mechanism for providing information to applicants. So even after you've completed the application process, we urge you to keep logging into that dashboard to keep abreast of the process, because that is the primary way that we would keep you abreast of anything that's happening. Next. So that's kind of what it looks like. You can have more than one application for an account, obviously. You know, children can have siblings or be twins or triplets, or we have lots of, you know, different family mixes these days. So you are able to have more than one application. However, you can only submit one application per child. That's really important to remember as well. Sometimes people want to log in at a later date and change their school choices, or update a contact field, and they think that they have to create a whole new application. You don't need to do that. What you would do is log into the dashboard, access the application that you've already submitted, and then make changes. And depending on what stage we're at in the process, the options that are available to you in that actions column on the right will be different. Next. So basically, I've just said that our dashboard is the primary mechanism that we use to communicate with you. So please remember to log in and check it regularly. Next. And now I'm going to hand you over to Skye, who is our Disability Placement Officer, and she's going to talk to you about reasonable adjustments for disability.
Good evening, everybody. As Garth just noted, my name is Skye Bauer. I'm a Senior Disability Placement Officer for the Selective Education Unit. So what are reasonable adjustments? Reasonable adjustments are the arrangements that we make to allow students with disability to access the placement test on the same basis as students without disability. If your child has a disability or a medical condition, we would really like you to tell us about it at the time of application so that we can make arrangements to support your child in the test if needed. Parents are sometimes a little concerned that information about disability might disadvantage their child during the placement process, but please know that this is definitely not the case. So how can parents or carers request reasonable adjustments? If you indicate that your child has a disability or medical condition, then you'll have the option to request adjustments for the test. In the application form, you'll be asked, does your child have any disability, medical condition, or behavioural condition that is likely to affect his or her performance in the test? You must select yes to this question to be able to request reasonable adjustments. If you select no, the form won't give you the option to request any adjustments. Next slide, please, Morag. Okay, the adjustments on this slide are just a few, on this slide are just a few examples of adjustments that can be arranged. Parents sometimes ask what adjustments they can or should request, and the answer is it's best to request adjustments that your child has on a regular basis in class tests and for formal assessments like NAPLAN at school. So if your child wears noise-cancelling earphones in class, or if they sit at the front to reduce distraction, if they need their work printed in large font due to low vision, or they use a glucose monitoring device to manage diabetes, then these are the adjustments that we recommend that you request. Regarding modified test materials, I'd like to emphasise that this is a paper-based test. Standard test papers are printed in Arial font size 12, and our large print options include size N18, 24 and 36, which can be printed on either A4 or A3 paper, and those options are published on our website. We absolutely need to know requirements for large print or for Braille at application time, because it's not something that we can arrange at the last minute. If your child uses an FM system to assist with hearing, it's also important to note this in the application form so that we can organise to get it set up on the morning of the test. Similarly, if your child has anaphylaxis, you'll need to bring your child's anaphylaxis action plan and EpiPen or AnaPen to an invigilator on the morning of the test. And also, if your child has asthma, you'll need to bring a copy of your child's asthma action plan to an invigilator at the test centre, but your child will be able to keep their inhaler and spacer on their desk. Now, supporting evidence. Reasonable adjustments are most likely to be approved when they have been in place on an ongoing basis for assessment and learning at school. When you request adjustments, you're asked to tick to confirm if they are provided at school. There's no need for parents or carers to ask schools to provide proof of this. When parents or carers indicate disability in the application form, our process is to contact the child's school to find out exactly what is needed to support the child. You'll also have the option to upload documentary evidence, such as a report from a medical or health professional, and this must be uploaded to your application by the 20th of May, which is when applications close. If you're in the process of investigating disability and you're still waiting on a report, please still tell us about it in the application form, and just let us know where you're up to so that you can send in the documentation as soon as you do get it. Finally, if reasonable adjustments are arranged for your child, we will send you a reasonable adjustments letter through your application dashboard, which will be approximately 2 weeks before the test, which is the same time that you'll receive your test authority letter. And this brings us to information about the test itself. So I'll hand back over to Magda Pollak now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Skye. Okay, so I had a glance at some of the questions, and they're very, very interesting questions. So let me talk to you about the test. One of the questions is there anything other than the test that gets taken into consideration? The answer is no. There used to be in the past school assessment scores, but that was dispensed with quite a number of years ago. So nowadays it's just the test. So what do we test? Well, the test is designed to measure the academic ability of students for placement in an opportunity class. It's got no other function. It's not there to tell you how good your child is at maths or anything like that. It's got this one function: to get children into or not into opportunity classes. It is trying to detect also the high potential and gifted student who may benefit from placement in an opportunity class. So we try very hard, or the test developers try very hard to avoid questions which require skills or knowledge that are not taught to students at this stage. For example, if children in OCs weren't taught quadratic equations, which I don't think they are, we would certainly not ask a question that required that sort of computation. But having said that, it's not trying to assess what is taught at a school. It's trying to go directly into what your child is able to do in this, what your child's skills and abilities are. We have a really good video where a little OC student that you can see on the screen there talks about her experience in an OC class. Next slide, please. So this is how the test components look. They are equally weighted, so they're all weighted 33.33 repeater percent. So reading is worth exactly the same as mathematical reasoning and thinking skills. It's not quite the same in selective. They are weighted differently, but in OC, they're weighted the same. So children have 30 minutes to answer 25 questions in reading, 40 minutes to answer 35 questions in maths, and 30 minutes to answer 30 questions in thinking skills. And all three tests are multiple choice. So the reading test questions are trying to get inferential comprehension. That's one thing that's much harder to teach and is actually something that gifted kids know. They can take information from various parts of the passage and put them together to infer what may come next or what someone's motivation might have been. Mathematical reasoning, it's all about understanding mathematical patterns. The children who are really, really gifted in this area will see relationships that other children will not see, and that in fact teachers often don't see as well. These are children who just see the patterns and can answer straight away. And thinking skills, of course, is the ability to think logically by using what has been said to you and making deductions. So that's the test. The 2024 test is still paper-based. We are hoping to go computer-based in future years, but at the moment we're still on paper. Next slide, please. Children are allocated to test centres by school at the moment, so they go in whole primary school groups, usually to high school test centres, but there are a few areas where we have so many students that we can't accommodate them in the high schools, and we sometimes have to hire halls and various other places to also be test centres. Not too many, mostly high schools, but just a few. Parents and carers are responsible for transporting their children to and from the test centre. We often, on the morning of the test, get a frantic phone call from a parent who says, oh, she's a single parent and she can't get the child there. I would urge you to, if you think you might have a problem, to talk to the school to see if you can buddy up your child with someone else who's going and get your child delivered that way. Approximately 2 weeks before the test, you'll get an email alert which will say to you, by the way, we always send you an email alert. Often the email alert just says, we've just sent you something in your message, go and have a look. And then you have to look at your dashboard to see what the message was, and that will tell you not only which test centre you have to take your child to, but you'll actually get a test authority letter which you have to print and bring that to the test. That is your official test ticket, if you like. You'll also get information about the test, and you'll definitely get what to bring to the test, what you can and actually can't bring. For example, you can't bring calculators or rulers or anything like that. Okay, now I'm often asked, and in fact, one of the questions in the Q&A at the moment is how can we help our children to do their best in the test? Well, we know that familiarity with a test is very important, and it makes the student relaxed and more comfortable to know exactly what kinds of questions, what the format's going to look like. And that is why we put up practice tests, several of them. I think we've got 3 that you get your child to do, if possible, in a timed way, so that they understand that they mustn't spend too much time on a question and that they won't get marks taken away if they get incorrect answers. They just won't get the mark right for that answer. The other important thing is not to stress them terribly by saying this is the most important thing in your life. If you don't do this, the whole of your career is gone. You know, some parents can be a little bit harsh about that. Just be more relaxed and say, do your best, my darling, and we love you and support you. So allow them to get sufficient sleep, get them to exercise a bit and have social activity in the usual way, and just practice the test a bit. Next slide. They can go over the timetable for the day. So we've got resources that tell you how to do this really well. Go over the timetable, make sure they understand the timing for each test, practice time management, practice how to complete the answer sheets. Unfortunately, we're still stuck with having the question book in one book and the answer sheet in another section, so that children can come a cropper by missing a line. They're answering question 30 on line 31, and that really is, they won't get the benefit of that. So they need to check every now and then that they're still answering on the right line. They're answering reading question 15 on line 15, mathematics question 20 on line 20, etc. And then the other thing to stress for the child is once they're reading the question paper, it's very easy for them to forget that they've got this separate answer sheet, and they might circle one of the answers A, B, C, or D on the question booklet. Well, those question booklets are not personalised. Nobody will know which one was theirs, so we'll never get those answers back. They have to do it on the answer sheet. Tell them to guess. If they really can't figure out the answer, guess. They've got A, B, C, D, and sometimes E. They've got 1 in 4 or 5 chance of getting it right, and there's no penalty. They won't get any marks deducted if they guess. So tell them, girls particularly are not so good at this. If they're a bit perfectionist, if they don't know the answer, they don't want to guess, just encourage them to guess. They can't hurt their case. Use a pencil to show. You'll be told to bring pencils. Use a pencil to shade the circle clearly to show the chosen answer. So they just have to colour it in. They don't have to be absolutely perfectionist about it, just as long as it's coloured in. They can change their answer. This is why it's in pencil, by rubbing out the incorrect choice and shading the new choice clearly. Next. And I hand over to Garth to talk to you a little bit about malpractice.
Okay, hello everybody. Not the most cheery of topics to be discussing, but malpractice, having really clear malpractice procedures is a really important way that we help ensure test integrity. Some examples of malpractice are on the screen there. So copying answers, continuing to write after being told to stop when the time has expired, collaboration or attempted collaboration, using unauthorized material, disruptive behaviour. That list is by no means definitive. that students found to have engaged in malpractice won't be eligible for placement. So it's really important that students and their families have a good understanding of what can be classified as malpractice. Next, please, Morag. Now, we'll cover off the illness or misadventure process briefly. As Magda mentioned earlier, we do have processes in place. If something occurs that prevents the child from sitting the test. So, illness on the day, or an accident, or something occurs that prevents the student from doing the test. If that happens, we urge you to log into your dashboard straight away and go to those 3 dots under the action column for your application and submit an illness and misadventure request. You will be asked to provide evidence. That evidence can be different depending on the circumstances for the request. At a later stage in the process, there is an appeals process as well, which occurs after outcomes have been released. It's important to understand that you can't submit an appeal further down the track about a performance or attendance issue that should have been managed through the illness and misadventure process. So it's really important if the student is not able to do the test on the day, that you log into the dashboard and you submit that illness and misadventure request. You have up to 5 working days after the test to lodge that request. Next, please. The equity placement model was another important aspect of the placement process. We know that some high potential and gifted students are missing out because they experience educational disadvantage. And so the equity placement model is one of the initiatives we have in place to make access to selective education fairer for more high profile and gifted students in our community. So under the model, up to 20% of places at each opportunity class are held aside for students in an equity group. So the equity groups are students from low socio-educational advantage areas, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander students, students from rural and remote locations, or students with a disability. And how it works is the first 75% of places in all classes are filled from all applicants, and then the 20% of places set aside for the equity group are then filled, and then there's 5% of places set aside for instances where students may have been unable to sit the test, and they may qualify for a place via an alternative means. It's important to understand that if the equity spots at a school aren't filled, they go back into the pool of general applicants to fill the spots. So not all those equity spots get filled in every class every year. Parents and families don't need to provide the department with any information or ask to be considered under the equity placement model. The department uses information that we already have about students to determine their eligibility, and that information can include information that parents have provided to us in their application. So it's really important, as Skye was mentioning earlier, that you provide us with as much information as you can, because that will always help us make sure that we are following the placement procedures in the best way possible for each student. Next. And so the last thing I'll talk to you about is the notice of outcome. So outcomes are expected in late October. An email alert will be sent to you, as Magda was describing earlier. the email will let you know that there's a message for you inside your dashboard, and then you log into the dashboard and you'll be able to access the performance report. So on the right there of the slide is an example of the performance report, and we've got another one online at our website as well. The report shows how your child performed in the test compared to the other students who set the test. There are no scores released. If you receive an offer, you must respond to it by the due date given to you in the application dashboard. The time period can be different depending on when you're given an offer. So I urge you to pay attention when you log into the dashboard. If you have an offer, pay attention to the date by which you need to either accept or decline that offer. As we were saying before, your child could be on one or more reserve lists for schools as well. And if that's the case, you'll be given a reserve band as well. The reserve bands go from A to F, and the reserve bands are offered to give you an indication of when it may be likely that you could get an offer based on placement activity at that same school in previous years. So we give the reserve bands so that families have an idea of what may be happening so that they can start making plans for their future. Next, please. Morag.
Beautiful. Thank you, Garth.
Over to you.
So the last, the one that I'm going to be speaking about is appeals. So as Garth said, there's the process of illness and misadventure. If there's something that happened that would prevented your child and you haven't already told the selection committee, then the option that you have is to make an appeal. Sorry, I've just realized I didn't put my video on. And I've got it back on.
Sorry, Morag, just to jump in there, I am cognizant that we are getting close to our time in 9 minutes, and I know we have some questions. I'm just wanting to give a heads up for the over 1,000 parents that we have on here that we will be answering your questions, and thank you so much if you give us the grace of perhaps an extra 5 or 10 minutes, because this content is so fantastic. Like I said, we are recording this. We will be answering some of the questions that are coming through, and we will get to those, and you'll get them in a recording. For those of you who do have to leave at 8, and I appreciate and acknowledge that was the allocated time, stay ahead of the recording that will come through. And but I just wanted to acknowledge that I can already see, because the number of questions coming through and what we're hoping to answer, that we will already be going over time. And if everyone's okay with that, we will continue, and that the recording will come through after that, but we will be going over time. But this has been fantastic. I've been taking so many notes from this section, but I just wanted to intersect before we got too close to the end, so that you can keep going, and we will continue to answer questions as we get closer to the end of time and a little bit beyond. All right, I'll mute and go off again. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. This is the last slide, so we're almost there. The appeals, all of the information, if you look on the right-hand side, that's what you'll see on the website. There are grounds that will be acceptable. You can appeal against outcome, residency, or malpractice. And you need to check the website carefully to see whether you have grounds for an appeal. If you notice underneath it says writing tests inquiry, OC classes don't do a writing test, so that's only for selective high school. If you do want to make an appeal, then you need to go into your dashboard, and it would then be heard by a panel. And based on the evidence that you provided, so it would prompt you for what evidence to provide, it will be decided whether or not your appeal is accepted. But all the details are on the website, and you would find out the outcome around December. And the last slide that we have is the contact information. So as we've spoken about previously, before you apply, you can send messages by email. So that's basically until today. After you have applied, it's really important that you use your dashboard, and that's throughout the process. The information that comes through the dashboard will take priority over emails. So that's the quickest way that you will get a response from us. And you can also telephone us on that number. And there is a Facebook group. The link will be here on the information that's shared. And you can ask questions through there and find information on there as well. And that wraps everything up. So I'm going to pass you back over to Magda, and we'll go through any of the questions. Hopefully.
Thanks, Morag. Sorry, I was busily answering questions on the Q&A. We've had some pre-submitted questions, and very good questions they are. How do I choose the right school? What do cut-off scores indicate? Now, I got a lot of those sorts of questions also from the Q&A today. People are concerned, especially because unfortunately coaching colleges give parents the message that the best schools are the ones with the highest cutoffs, and that just is silly. It just means that a higher cutoff score just means that that particular school, for whatever reason, is popular, is in an area where really bright kids, a lot of bright kids apply. That doesn't mean that the school caters for them any better than the school around the corner, which has fewer students applying. So, and these cutoff scores, we used to provide them, but we don't anymore because they don't tell you anything. They're just silly. They give you a league table, which is false. They vary wildly from year to year. For example, if we get a student who goes to the school and for some reason does not enjoy it and goes back to their normal school, the one they came from, we then have to make an offer to somebody on the reserve list. But it may not be the next person on the reserve list, because the next person on the reserve list already accepted an offer. So we may have to drop 10, 15, 20 students who already have an offer somewhere else before we can offer to someone who didn't get an offer anywhere else. So that year, that school's going to have a much lower cutoff than the previous year and the next year. So it just does not mean anything. So what we say to parents is really look at the distance. Don't condemn your child to travel incredibly far just because you think it's a better school or a good school or the coaching college told you that. Look at the community reputation, talk to people in the supermarket, have a look at the school's website, see what they offer. Some schools are really top in sport activities as well as academic excellence. Some of them do really wonderful music stuff. If your child is really a good musician or a sports person as well as bright, that's the school for them, and hopefully it's close. Also, look at what their friends are applying for too, because it's really very comfortable to go to a school when you already have someone that you know. So all of those things are far better than looking at cutoff scores. Another question that was really a good question was, how does OC differ from selective high schools? And more importantly, if a student's unsuccessful for OC, should parents try for selective entry or should they just give up already? So I would always say that don't ever give up. OC is a program for year 5 and 6 students, while selective high school entry relates to 7 to 12 in high school. So a lot can happen in the 2 years since you've applied for OC in a high school. For one thing, there are more places available in selective high schools, and sometimes there isn't a selective high school near an OC and vice versa. So you really shouldn't be deterred from applying because your child was unsuccessful for OC entry. I got a lot of questions on visas, particular visas, and whether that you can apply with those visas. The answer is you can apply. You can apply with whatever visa you've got, but you've got to be very aware that you can't enroll in a NOC unless you've got certain visas. And the visas that are eligible for OC are on the DE International website. We have a link to it, which which you can find on our website. You look that up and you'll find every visa number and class and subclass is listed there. And if you go across the columns, right near the end, 2 columns, you'll see is that visa eligible for selective high school or opportunity class entry? And there's either a yes or a no. But keep looking at that, because residency requirements can change. So the short answer is apply no matter what visa you've got, but be aware that when it comes to making an offer, we may not be able to make an offer to you with that visa, but we may later on. It may change between now and then. So it's always better to be in it than not to be in it. Can I apply if I know I'll be moving? I know that was a really good question as well. Very important for you to apply. If you want OC placement for your child, even if you don't know where you're going to be living at the time that the child qualifies, put something down, put down the address, put down the schools near the address you're currently living at, and know that you can change your choices right up till the 11th of August. So put down any 2 schools and then come back and change them once you move to wherever it is you're going to move. Another question that we're also getting tonight is it different for parents of non-government school students? And the answer is no. You apply in exactly the same way if you're a non-government school parent. You apply through the website in the usual way, but you'll get an extra page back once you submit, which is called a principals page. For government schools, the principals go online on the website and they fill out all the information that we ask them to fill out directly on our website. Non-government principals don't have access to that website, so they have to do it on a principals page, which we ask them to return to the selective education unit once they've finished. And the other thing I already mentioned is Aurora. You can certainly apply for Aurora, but you'll have to transfer your child to a government school if you want to attend Aurora and the child qualifies. A very, very frequently asked question is, do the children need specific tutoring to succeed in the exams? Now, I can't answer you yes or no and leave it at that. But what I can tell you is far more students get tutored and don't get in than get tutored and get in. So if the tutoring was what got those students in, then you can blame the tutoring for not getting the other students in. You really, if you look at it logically, there are a lot of students who aren't tutored and they get in. There are a lot of students who are tutored and get in, but whether the tutoring was what got them in or not, I can't answer you. And there are a lot of students who are tutored and don't get in. So really, if you can, save your money and make sure that the children just do a lot of the practice test papers and understand how they can get familiar with the test and how they can do their best in the test. Very important question. I told you right at the beginning, there are 1,840 vacancies and over 15,000 students applying. So if your child is devastated because he or she didn't get in, tell them how proud you are of them. Tell them how hard it is to get in. and that they should feel really good about making the attempt. But even more importantly, every public school, you may have seen the announcement a couple of weeks ago, every public school has measures in place to cater for high potential and gifted students. So they certainly won't miss out. If they're identified, they'll be catered to. And the final question we got in the pre-submitted questions was about the new schools. Why is there a reduction in the number of OC placements in certain catchments? And does this mean reduced resources too? The answer is that the department checks enrolment numbers against available school places quite often so we can support all students to attend their local public schools. There are a lot of schools which go over cap and they can't, they have to start using portables and all sorts of things to try to get their local students in. So there, from time to time, the department has to rationalise the numbers in certain areas. So the department relocated some schools that were over capacity or near capacity to schools that were below capacity. And resourcing at the schools is based on the total enrolments for that year, so it shouldn't make too much difference. What we were trying for was to create opportunity classes at more schools so people had more choice, resulted in a fairer spread of opportunity classes across Sydney. We try to make better use of school infrastructure and improve access for local students, and potentially give more capacity to new OC schools to accept siblings of OC class students into the school, because there's nothing worse than a parent having to take one child to one school and another child to another school, especially if they've got multiple children and multiple levels, high schools and primary schools. So this was an attempt to try to reduce all of that issue. And I think that was the end of the questions, the pre-submitted ones.
Fantastic.
So,
Magda, you are a wealth of information. Thank you so much for, I've got a couple of questions. So I know we're over time, and but I really did want to acknowledge that about 10 minutes ahead of our 8 p.m. finish. But first of all, you are really a wealth of information, and thank you to all of the panelists tonight who have given their time tonight, but also just the extensive research and commentary and the preparation of the slide deck, and incorporating some of the pre-prepared questions that have come, pre-submitted questions that have come through in the last couple of days. All right, so I appreciate everyone. We are over time. I know that there's a lot of questions coming through. I've got they've been categorized for me behind the scenes by the team of people who are working to make this so. So I am going to work through just a couple of the questions that will that seem to be very similar in the volume that have come through. Bear with me. I will just get to the right screen on my side. Okay, so I will Magda and Garth, I'll figure out I'll leave it to you to who this question might be more suitable to. So my first question that seems to have been of a very similar theme is everyone placed in the class required to apply, or can schools select children? Great question. Thank you.
I'll answer that one because I want Garth to answer the school-based ones as an OC teacher himself in the past. So yes, everyone has to go through this process. The only way that there are some schools in the country sometimes that don't quite fill. And in those cases, the school can opt to put their brightest students into that class, not as OC students, but students who can benefit from that sort of teaching as well, which means that if an OC student comes into the area and qualifies, then that student would get the place. So this is the only situation in which then they don't go through this process. Otherwise, everyone goes through the same testing, and that's how they're chosen.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Magda. That's fantastic. All right. Next question I've got here. How integrated are the OC class within schools? For example, can kids in an OC opportunities class have opportunities to be part of school leadership?
Garth.
All right, so I'll tackle that one. I did forget to mention earlier that yes, I was an OC teacher before I
I
moved
didn't know that. That's great.
education unit. So I came from Aurora Public School. So I can tell you that, of course, every school is different, but yes, the OC classes are integrated with the rest of the school. It's a question we often get asked from parents because they're curious about what might make an OC class different. Essentially, it's about the learning techniques and things that happen in the classroom. But from a whole school perspective, that OC class is another year 5 or year 6 class, and those students participate in all the same activities and have all the same opportunities as any other student in the school.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Big question. I've seen a big thread of those come through in various shapes and sizes. So thank you, and great to know that you were a previous OC teacher. All right, so I've got 2 more questions and I'm cognizant of the time. What subjects does OC cover? For example, does it include sport?
Yes, so as per my previous answer, OC classes are exactly the same as every other New South Wales public school class. They have the same curriculum. The learning activities they might do in the class might look or feel different, but the subjects that they learn are exactly the same. All
right, fantastic. And look, final question, and I appreciate there are hundreds more, but we have attempted to work through the pre-submitted and collate the key themes that we're seeing come through. Final question though, as I'm cognizant of time, can a student sit the test and opt not to go into an OC placement?
Yes, that's I'll answer that one. That's a really good question. The answer is yes. Yes, nobody's standing there with a stick. If you just wanted your child to have a go, that's fine. If you wanted to do OC, but your child doesn't want to, and you've got as far as persuading him or her to actually do the test, but they get in and they don't want to go, well, that's, there's no point forcing a child.
Yeah.
So you just decline. It's very easy. The only thing I would say is if you decline an offer, you can't then get it back. So you've got to be really careful. When you say decline, there's a little pop-up that says, do you really want to do this?
Are you sure?
Are you sure? Because if you do it by mistake, that's very, very hard to, I mean, if you do it by mistake and you ring us immediately, we might be able to save your bacon. But what we do is we try to fill the classes really quickly. So the moment we get a decline, we start making further offers. So don't do it by accident, but you certainly can decline. And a lot of people do. About a third of all offers are declined over the process. Yep.
It's interesting, Magda, talking to a number of our members as I was preparing for this, that seemed to be quite consistent around certainly the messaging. Well, thank you so much to the whole Department of Education Selective panel who've come along tonight. It is so informative. I have literally been taking notes copiously in the background in between managing my child at the end of the evening, which I imagine many of our parents on here have been doing as well. So for more facts, certainly go onto the Department of Education website. There will be on the screen that website information, and there will be a recording that will come out for those of you who've had to leave, that you'll be watching this as a recording. But look, this has been truly so informative, and I really appreciate the time and care that's been taken to not only include as much of the pre-submitted questions and answer them ahead, but certainly to allow for the fact that there's been some great questions coming through live tonight. And I know that on the back end of that, there'll be some more resources that no doubt will come through as well. And just as a heads up, our next webinar, these webinar series are very popular, and we do appreciate all of the engagement we have, not only from the Department of Education, but for all of our parents and carers who show up for these. And the next one is around vocational education training pathways. This has come hot off the press with a lot of feedback and interest from many of our parents on behalf of their children, parents and carers, particularly obviously this is high school students, navigating the landscape of subjective choices, career pathways and what their future endeavours. So it's kind of interesting. We've gone from the spectrum of OC and our next one will be vocational education training. So keep an eye out for our emails and certainly on our website. But Magda, Garth and all of the team, I really appreciate, and to the P&C Federation team who've all been working tirelessly behind the scenes to allow this great webinar to go ahead, and for the incredible amount of resources and facts that have come through. We very much appreciate, and of course to our parent and carer community who show up in the midst of everything that we're doing at this hour of the evening. I thank you so much and appreciate all the effort that's gone through. So, and it opens tomorrow for those who are putting those applications through. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you,
we're
Yvonne,
not
for
far off from
inviting
the
us.
end of school term, so a nice break is ready for us soon. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your impact and engagement for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us. Bye.